What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a found footage movie. And as you guys know, I talk about found footage movies a lot on my channel. I am a huge fan of the found footage genre. I've talked about this a million times, but what I love so much about found footage is if you don't have a large budget and you don't have a lot of money to work with, you can create a really effective, emotionally engaging story, which is one of the things that I love so much about the genre. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be emotionally engaging. And that's what I always appreciated about the genre for years and years and years. It's just something that I really appreciate a lot. And this is a movie, I saw a couple of videos about it on TikTok recently. This is something I'd never heard of before. And people said it was very rough around the edges, but that there were some genuinely horrifying moments in it. And there's, I believe, three movies in this series. I just watched the first one and I'm going to talk about it with you a little bit today. And the film I'm going to be talking about with you today is The Fear Footage. The Fear Footage is directed by Ricky Umberger. On April 19th, 2016, Deputy Leo Cole vanished. The next morning, his body camera was found. So I was really excited to watch this movie. Like I said, anytime people recommend found footage movies online, I typically try to seek them out and watch them as soon as possible because I always like to add new movies into my repertoire when it comes to found footage that I appreciate. But unfortunately, in this particular circumstance, this movie sucks. I really hated it. I feel like a lot of the buzz surrounding this movie exists because of the last 10 minutes of the film. I feel like most of the attempts at scares in this movie really get overshadowed by the incredibly poor performances, some of the really lazy CGI. Like there's one in particular where the one of the first segments of the movie, this kid's in his room and it starts thunderstorming, and the rain effect that they used is so terrible. Just like wait for a night that it's raining or just don't make it rain. I don't feel like you necessarily needed that. So there's a lot of really distracting things in it as well. And I'll break that down when I tell you about the movie today. So, like the plot description states, you get a police officer who is called to this house where he's pretty convinced that there's not a house there, that there never has been. But he shows up and there is a house there, and he goes up. He opens the door and walks inside. The electricity's out. There's no one in the home. And he walks into the living room. There's a TV there with a VCR, and there's a VHS tape in it that says The Fear Footage. And he puts it in and he watches three different segments, but in between the segments, he goes around the house looking around, and obviously, he sees some really creepy things. He feels very unsettled. And the movie is just watching this officer's experience as he watches these tapes and tries to figure out what's going on in this home. So, like I said, I thought this movie was really, really bad. And unfortunately, I talk about a lot of found footage on here. And as you guys know, if you've been watching me for quite some time, I am incredibly forgiving about things when it comes to found footage, especially because I know it's typically made by people who don't have a lot of money that just want to create something effective. My issue with this movie is the budgetary limitations and the things that they try to do. They try to reach way too far into an ability that they do not have, which causes most of this movie to feel like a mess. And I will say, if I'm going to pay it a compliment, because I don't have a lot, because I really didn't like this movie, the last like 5 or 6 minutes is very good. I feel like the tension that's built, this sort of like hellish nightmare that this cop has been put into, some of the really disturbing imagery that he sees. Like I said, some of the practical effects, the way some of the visuals look, took me out of it, but I do think they hide enough in that last few minutes in shadow to where it creates an effectively frightening environment. That was my favorite part of the movie. If the entirety of the film could have felt like the last 6 minutes, I think the movie would have been very effective and I really would have appreciated it. The problem is, most of this movie feels like a VHS knockoff from the original VHS, and not in a good way because so much of it is really clunky. For starters, the performances in this movie are absolutely horrible. The cop, the dialogue that he has when he's doing that, is anyone here? Is anyone there? Like, it doesn't seem like he's feeling any sort of suspense. And I understand a lot of people would be like, oh, he's a police officer. He comes into contact with horrifying things all the time. I still feel like if you were in an isolated home where you didn't even know the home was there, and you're hearing creepy noises, you're seeing terrifying imagery on a TV, he starts to show some emotion towards the end of the movie, but like through most of it, it's really hard to believe him. The first segment in this movie, which is called The Birthday Party, it's this mom and son, and it is some of the worst acting I've ever seen in a movie, period. It was almost impossible to invest myself in any part of the story because of how bad their acting is. And also, like, it's affiliated with clowns. I don't know what they were going for with the makeup in that particular segment, but it looks really awful. It's very cheap, very rough around the edges, and I did not find it to be scary at all. The second segment, which is about these guys doing like tornado chasing, it takes a very weird turn, and it's just like it almost felt like shock value for shock value, like the way they stumble across this thing. I just wanted more to the story. I feel like the way it's just kind of like, oh, guys stumble upon a weird situation. Look, it's a cult. Like, they could have done more with it. I also felt like the visuals in that scene are not great. There's like a scene that has fire and it's just really, really bad. And like I said, that previous segment had that issue with the rain that was just like, why did you even include that visual effect? It immediately sort of cheapens the entirety of your production when you do that, which also made the movie very difficult to get through. Third segment, which is this guy who is like incredibly paranoid that he's hearing something outside of his house. It's implied that like he was a drug addict, his former wife or girlfriend like doesn't want to be anywhere near him because of that. And that had a really interesting story and framework, but I also feel like the pacing was really hard for it to pay off. And they do that stupid thing at the end where like the creature runs at the camera for no reason at all. No one's holding the camera anymore. It's just kind of laying there. I always hate when found footage movies do that. Like, make it make sense. You're not just going to run straight into a camera because it's not like you know the audience is there. So there's a lot of dumb moments like that in this movie. And then the thing that drove me the most insane was the cop in the house. He like watches this whole thing. He's clearly not like looking over his shoulder or anything the entire time he's watching this, and then he goes, well, I watched a segment, now it's time to roam around the house and see if I can find something new, to then just gravitate back towards the VHS player to watch another segment. Like, it's just stupid. The pacing of it doesn't work. It's not structured in a way that makes sense. The VHS movie does it in a way that it's people investigating a situation and they're intentionally watching these, but there's a ton of people in that group. There's people like looking out, there's things happening. They're trying to figure out what's going on. This is one guy by himself in a creepy abandoned house. And it was so, and then they tried to incorporate this story where he found this girl's journal. I felt like the journal entries were really kind of funny. It was like they tried to make it like genuinely scary, but it was just really poorly done. And as I'm watching, I'm just like, God, this is taking forever. It's not scary outside of the jump scare accompanied with a loud noise until that very last 5 minutes, which I thought was incredibly effective. And I just wish the creators of this would have kind of stuck to whatever formula they were doing at the very end, because it would have made a much more entertaining experience. But instead, this movie is a miserable slog to get through. I would not recommend it to anyone. I don't feel like it's very good. And I know some people have said the second one's better. I don't really think that I'm ever going to watch it if it's anywhere near the poor quality of this one. Have you seen the Fear footage? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was horrible. I hated it, and I do not want to watch it again. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot. Lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.